Support comes from Missouri Forest Products Association, committed to sustainable and sound conservation of the state's forests, which support more than 41,000 Missouri jobs, resulting in a $10 billion industry. ChooseWood.com.
From St. Louis Public Radio. This is St. Louis on the Air.
I'm Elaine Cha. A crucial moment in a musician's career might happen in a club, but it could also happen in your neighbor's garage or even your own. Networks of musicians have played more or less informally at meetups and house parties for a long time. Then there's house shows, which can happen in living rooms or backyards, and the house show scene is alive and well here in St. Louis. But don't take it from me. Here's what several local artists told us about these micro-music spaces.
Hi, this is Dan Rubright. I think in larger venues you meet people musically, but in smaller venues, sometimes the size of living rooms, you meet people personally as well.
Even in this day and age, word of mouth goes a long way.
Yo, this so-and-so from the Midwest Avengers crew, and we used to always have these crazy epic house parties on the south side at the Avenger Mansion, aka the band house.
Houses and backyards and porches were some of the first stages that I ever performed.
And on breaks and after the show, there's time to really connect, share some stories with people.
You know, the police weren't really tripping like that at the time, but I think it's a great way to get down to the grassroots.
It's also just cool to get inside other people's houses in St. Louis and see some neat spaces, and oftentimes with art and funky decor and who knows, it's just a whole different, other artsy community.
Face to face, no stage, just on the floor, rocking with the people.
Individuals that that have come to see you specifically play.
You got DJs, MCs, graffiti artists, dancers, bands performing. It was just going down, and it was a good way for us to kind of create our own scene.
Spaces like So Far Sounds and Cocoa and Cumin offered me the opportunity to just build a stronger fan base.
Sometimes this leads to new gigs or other opportunities.
It really allows you to connect into the souls of the people that are your fans or will likely become your fans because they get an intimate look into the music that you're making.
It's the closest thing I can imagine to like a Greenwich Village like coffee shop or something like that. I mean, it's just like everyone's involved in the performance, and you can feel that when you're not on the stage. You're like you're just right in the living room right next to people, so it's a blast.
There's kind of an exclusivity piece that goes with it, right? Everybody can't fit in the house. Those fans typically stick with me for a lifetime.
So we might actually have to get back to doing that. Actually, now that I think about it, they be charging so much to get into these venues to throw a show. We might just throw one like we used to.
And those are the ones that help spread the gospel on the music that I'm doing.
So today we have a stacked lineup. We're going to talk about house shows done STL style. To start that discussion, we've got two folks repping Judson House. Joe Mancuso, booking manager for Judson House, and a jazz musician and baritone. Welcome.
Well, thank you for welcoming me. It's great to be here.
And Stanley Jones, owner and operator of Judson House. Thank you for being here. Now, Stanley, Judson House is so named because it's an historic Missouri landmark here in St. Louis's Grand Center neighborhood. But it's not just a landmark the way a museum might be, for example. It's a home. Who lives there now?
I do.
Okay. Is it just for you?
No.
Okay.
I have a life mate that lives with me, but I've been there since 95, and it was formerly a dental supply house, and it took me 25 years to renovate it.
Okay. And you said dental supply?
I did.
Okay. Now, I also understand that Judson House, it had a brief stint as a bed and breakfast back in 2002. Why did you shift to hosting house music there instead?
The house was renovated thinking that its future lie with a bread and breakfast format, but it didn't take too long to figure out that we just don't like people.
Okay. However, you are opening your house to people, right? I told you this was going to be a lively segment here. So, Joe, you are the booking manager. What genre of music do you typically vote for Judson House?
Anything that Stan wants to hear. But it typically turns out to be that we're mainly jazz, but also experimental, avant-garde, classical, and then the occasional blues band, and then singer-songwriters. Sometimes people that are passing through St. Louis that have a show here or in a neighboring city will get a hold of us and see if we can accommodate them, and we'll check out their music. And if it's interesting, we'll book them. But yeah.
House parties are any musician's rite of passage. If playing small clubs is paying dues, then playing house parties is being in the trenches. Even before we were Midwest Avengers, we were playing at house parties, whether jamming live or beatboxing, rapping, breaking, popping, locking. House parties were always the place to be and the way to get in front of people immediately, even if you wasn't from that area. We grew up in U City in the Loop, but we used to go to Clayton, Brentwood, Ladue, Webster, Kirkwood, Normandy, all over the city and just rock house parties. And plus, as a musician, house parties is a great place to try out new music, see if it's working or not, see if you can change something, see what gets the crowd hyped. But my favorite thing about house parties is the vibe. You right there in front of the people, eye to eye, face to face, sweating, spilling beers, smoke blowing in your face, light blinding you. You know what I mean? It's just that energy you get by being in that crowd that close, and you just pull that energy off people and you put it back in there. So just that whole vibe of being at a party with no rules and no supervision, and just being able to get it in and do what you want to do as an artist and express yourself, that's, I think, the best part of it.
Welcome back. I'm Elaine Cha, and we are here today talking about house shows in St. Louis. Joe Mancuso is the booking manager for Judson House and a jazz musician and baritone. And before that break, you were telling us about the different musicians who come through Judson House. And I'm wondering now, is the genre of music that you book for Judson House specific to having a very small space?
Well, we definitely take that into consideration. In the colder months, we have indoor shows, and it's in the living room. And, the 40 to 50 people is kind of like the comfortable capacity. We've had more, Mm-hmm. When we have outdoor shows, up to 100. We've had 100 plus people out in the courtyard. So it depends on the season.
Now, we have someone who has a little more perspective on capacity and booking from another house show owner and operator, and that's Larry Fuchs of the Kinda Blue Club. Welcome, Larry.
Hello.
Right. So, Larry, like Judson House, the Kinda Blue Club books jazz shows, and I would assume Kinda Blues musicians as well. But Kinda Blue accommodates just about half the number of audience members seated that Judson House does indoors, and it's about 20?
Between 20 and 30.
Between 20 and 30. Now, how do you book and manage shows so that you're not violating ordinances around capacity and noise ordinances, for example?
Well, all our shows are indoor, and it's from October to June, and mostly it's confined inside.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't let the crowd get too big. And there's really no place to go. So
So they're kind of stuck in. Now, something else your house and Judson House has in common is that it has a bed and breakfast past. So you started booking shows for Kind of Blue Club much farther back, however. I saw it in 1998, is
Yes.
that right? Who or what inspired you to start doing house shows, especially if there were more formal venues already for experiencing music?
I wanted to have bookings for local people and students and teachers and people that normally wouldn't be able to play these larger venues because they just don't have the notoriety.
Right. Who were some of the earliest, acts that you had come through Kind of Blues Club?
Well, most of our stuff has been local. I mean, we've had a few people from France. We've had a few people.
And do they typically come to you, or do you find them?
Well, in the early days, I went to find them, and those musicians that I had in the early days talked to other musicians, and then they came to us.
So there are community connections.
Yes, very
that
much
happen.
so.
Okay.
Very much so.
Is the same also true at Judson House? Do people talk to one another and then find their way to your door?
Yes.
Have there been any notable connections that have happened?
Well, there's a lot of camaraderie between all of the local venues. Like, we've been to Larry's place several times. He's been to Judson House, I believe, right? Yeah.
Yes.
And
You heard it here.
We love each other.
we love each other, and we share a lot of the acts too.
Yeah, we have the same people.
Yeah. So we have another person here in studio, Darian Wigfall, who's co-founder of the former artist collective FarFetched. He has another set of experiences with house shows and alternative venues in St. Louis. Let's get some musician side insights in this conversation. Welcome, Darian.
Thank you for having me.
Now, Darian, members of the FarFetched collective, they made music of many kinds and performed in all kinds of spaces.
Indeed.
And I remember well and quite fondly one of the house shows I played one summer several years ago in someone's backyard. Now, as the former collective's director of operations, how did you go about finding and securing venues for FarFetched artists?
Well, it was sort of like what you would say with the Judson House and Kind of Blue. We kind of tapped into our network to ask people about houses around town that had enough space, number one, for the people that we were trying to fit. And we were only inviting about 100 people, and then about 50 would turn out. So we would try to find a house that also had bathrooms and things like that available. And we would kind of outsource the drinks and food and stuff like that so that we wouldn't have to take care of that.
Okay, so it would be kind of a more complete experience. And was that your job alone? I mean, you're talking about the role that other people played, but was that principally your job to secure those venues?
Yeah, at the end of the day, I was the last person to be like, this is the place, we're going to go ahead and pay these folks enough, to make it worth their while, and then set up who was going to play the show and all the other promotion and everything like that.
Now, you've also been part of creating and maintaining a range of spaces all around the city for musicians and other artists as well, right? You're also a DJ,
Yes.
DJ Wiz.
Yes.
What part do house shows play in fostering and making room for diversity in St. Louis's music scene?
Well, like Larry said, a lot of times you're not able to play bigger venues because you don't have the notoriety. And so house shows made it possible for experimental artists especially to be able to play in front of an audience that was there to hear what they wanted to play versus like, a bar where there might be a lot of cover bands and people are there just to drink or eat or do something else besides listen to them.
This is kind of open. I'll look for whose eyes light up at this question. When it comes to musicians and how they experience these house spaces, is there anything that they have shared with you about sort of things that they really appreciate about playing in a more intimate setting?
They love playing at the house, and we don't know why. And they love the experience. They love the listening experience. Days and weeks later about, and when can we come back? And it's a serious problem with booking.
Okay. Oh, it's a problem with booking. Joe, tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I know why, because I'm also a musician and a performer, and I've played at Kind of Blue and at Judson House, and I do frequently. And the reason why we love it is because when we're performing and bearing our soul in that room, the people are absorbing it, and you get so much love back that you don't get like if you're playing at a bar or a restaurant and people are talking. It's a listening experience, and unlike being at a venue where there's a lot of distance between you and the audience, you could basically touch them. They're right there. It's like us in this room. If we put on a show and there were 30 people in this room. It's like that. So it's a much different experience than any other performance, and that's why we love it. And you asked me another question, but I can't remember what you just said.
I mean, part of it was about how how musicians feel as they're in that space, and there's also what you are observing, right, of those who are enjoying the show. So it seems like people go for the express purpose of being there to listen to the music, not to grab a drink with a friend.
That's right.
Or do something else.
I call it a vibe.
Okay.
It's a social musical vibe. It's an interaction between the crowd and the band that's like no other. But they come because of the vibe, the social vibe. They feel it from the people. They get the whistles, the applause, the presence.
Yeah, I think that's the major difference is like a house show, you might gain everyone in that room as a fan, but at a bar or like a bigger venue, just the distance, it's a less of an intimate connection. And I think that, just the corporate, I think, nature of a bigger venue a lot of times keeps people in a surface mode. And in these houses, you feel familiar, right? You're coming into somebody's house and it already feels like, well, I'm in somebody's space, right? And you might go to the kitchen or you might go to the bathroom and there's, effects that show that somebody lived there, somebody lives there. And that's totally different than going to like a Del Mar Hall or something like that.
And that show that I did go to, for the FarFetched Collective, I remember feeling like I wanted to be much more careful about what I was doing and where I was going, because people live in this house, right? And so the level of respect that I saw those who were there according to the space, as well as to the people who were performing, it was pretty remarkable. And I've been to some shows in LA too, and they have the same kind of feel. How do you all work with the economic side of things? So Joe and Stanley, what is the ticket charge for a show at Judson House?
No tickets, no pre-sales. We share an email list, and so people know in advance who's coming and when. And we have a suggested donation price. But say basically give what you can. We don't require, and then the musician gets the bucket.
And has that always been the way that you've done things?
Yes, it's always been the way I've done things.
Okay.
We stay under the radar basically for a reason. We don't have a business license. I do carry extra insurance, cover my derriere.
That is important.
But there's nothing business about it. And we also, the musicians, we encourage them to play their passion, and particularly their original material, to experiment on us. And they get to interact with us verbally and also socially, and they stay around after hours. And sometimes we have to get rid of them. Okay. It's time to go. It's time to go to bed.
Well, that's quite a testament to the kind of experience people are having. And from what I understand, was there not a show just yesterday sometime recently. Tonight there will be one?
Yes.
Okay, tell us about that show, Joe.
So tonight at Judson House, we have a Judson House favorite and one of my friends, Mr. Jesse Gannon, who is
also a friend of mine.
Yeah.
Who and I feel personally that Jesse is one of the most talented musicians in St. Louis.
Mm-hmm. Agree.
And as a matter of fact, he played on my first jazz record, and I love his jazz piano stylings. But he's also a songwriter, singer. He does a lot of his music. It's hard to classify, but it's kind of like a neo soul jazz. I don't know what you would call it.
There's a lot to it.
Yeah, there's a lot to it.
He's really,
it's really good, though.
He's really, really good.
Okay.
So we're happy to have him tonight at Judson House.
Well, and it certainly sounds like the kind of music that you should be paying attention to, not relegating sort of to background noise.
Definitely.
Darian, for you, as someone who has been to different places, where have some of the best house shows happened? And maybe like unconventional locations?
Yeah, I was actually thinking about this before because the producer Aaron asked me to think about some stories, and so I was thinking about a show we did on Cherokee one time. It actually wasn't a house; it was sort of it was a private show, but it was in a I wouldn't say a co-working space, but it's like a shopping center in the middle of Cherokee. You wouldn't know it's there. It's just this one little glass door, and then when you walk in, it's like a 2-level. Like there's a couple offices upstairs and there's some places to shop on the lower level. And we did a show in the lower level. And one of the best moments at a show I'd ever seen happened with Steven Bavaza, who went by Hands and Feet, who goes by Future Modern now. Mm-hmm. And he lost his stick. He was playing the cymbal. He was playing the guitar and the keys and the cymbal and like looping it all together, and he lost his stick at one point in the show, and he just kept playing with his knuckles, right?
Oh my God.
And then at some point he started to bleed, but he kept playing through the show, and it was like, I was like, maybe this should stop, but I feel like he's doing this for the show, like this is on purpose. And then come to find out, he lost his stick, and he just kept playing. But everybody there, I felt like they felt he was just giving his body to the art, right? And it was just this amazing experience. But like, yeah, you would never know that this spot is there on Cherokee. I don't even know if it's still there, but it was just like 4 little kind of like spaces to the side, and it was a double level building.
So it's very much moment in time, and you'd have been lucky to be there.
Yeah, for sure.
Today's episode was produced by Aaron Dorr, with audio engineering podcast design by Aaron. Our production intern is Avery Rogers. Our executive producer is Alex Hoyer.
St. Louis on the Air is a production of St. Louis Public Radio. Understanding starts here.
Our podcast proudly supports St. Louis artists by using music from Life Creative Group.
Do you find yourself regularly listening to episodes of St. Louis on the Air? Suggest us to a friend you think might enjoy our conversations. And leave us a review and rating on Apple Podcasts on the App Store. It's the simplest way to help people discover our show. Thanks.
St. Louis Public Radio is a member-supported service of the University of Missouri St. Louis.
Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association. Missouri produces wood pallets, railroad ties, white oak barrels, hardwood floors, and more. Details on the variety of products made in the state are at choosewood.com.